People trying to put us down, talking about my Beef Wellington. It's Beef Wellington on Dinner Party tonight. Today we're going to make Beef Wellington, named after the great hero, to the point that they named a very delicious and luxurious dish after him. Beef Wellington is a filet wrapped in duxelles, wrapped in prosciutto, and wrapped in puff pastry. Traditionally, it's a filet wrapped in pâté, wrapped in a crepe, wrapped in pastry. That's a little intense for the modern palate. It's very kind of Victorian stuff. You're thinking, I can't make that. I've seen pictures of it. It's too fancy. It's got 8,000 things going on, the puff pastry and the filet and the blah-de-blah. I'm telling you, you can do this. It's multiple steps, like coq au vin, like beef bourguignon, like all that stuff we've made together. You just got to follow the steps and plan ahead, and you can do this. We're going to use basically Gordon Ramsay's recipe, which is essentially a recipe for Beef Wellington. There's not a ton of ways you can make it because it's quite specific, and it's something that I wanted to give you before the holidays because you can make it in advance, the night before, or for a fancy dinner party. Like say it's that night, but you have to work that day. You can come home from work on this day, put it in the fridge, and then just come home from work on the day of the party and stick it in the oven. It's fantastic. So, what are the things you need to make a Beef Wellington? You need the center cut of a filet. When you buy a filet, it's curled under and tied. What you want is this part of the filet, the part that has no tuck, which is called, in case you ever wondered, the chateaubriand. When they say, may I have chateaubriand? It's just the center part of a filet. Here and here is the same taste. This just doesn't have a flap. The reason you want that is because you want a tubular piece of meat. When you get it home from the butcher, who of course you have tipped. My butcher, of course, being Hudson and Charles, and the totally incomparable Kevin and Jay. They sold me a beautiful practice Wellington for the show, and then I cut a chateaubriand in half so we could have a Magic of Television one and this one. So you can make one this small. What you want to do when you get this home from hopefully Hudson and Charles if you're in New York is you want to make it as tubular as possible. No, I'm not going to wink. If you can't do this and you get it home and one side is flat from sitting, hopefully not for too long, at the butcher shop, that's okay. But if you can, you want to sort of roll it again out of the paper from the butcher, right? And kind of almost like the cookie dough we made in the cookie episode. And you want to store it like this so it doesn't make another flat side. So you need chateaubriand, salt and pepper, puff pastry. Dufour's is the best. It's kind of expensive. It's over $10. Defrost this in the fridge, not on the countertop. So I'm going to throw this in the fridge. And that should be defrosted for at least a few hours before you're getting ready to go. Mushrooms and prosciutto. Not that hard. First thing you're going to do is make a duxelle. What is a duxelle? It's a fancy word for mushroom paste. The way you make it is pretty easy. You take mushrooms that you've wiped, right, and you cut them and put them in a food processor. The problem with mushrooms is that they are filled with water. So if you want to use this as a paste, which we do, that's going to seal in the filet, we'll get there, it has to be dry. So after we make it, we're going to dry it in a dry pan with no olive oil for about 10 minutes, which I'll show you, until it stops giving up off water. You can rough chop these. Obviously, you're making a paste, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, we're just going to pulse this. Then run it. You want it to be fairly fine. Don't add water or oil. You're going to struggle with the amount of water that's in there. All right, very pasty. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to take this and put it in a dry pan. Do not be tempted to put olive oil in the pan. Even if it's a hot pan, Lynn, when you would usually do hot pan.
Olive oil.
No olive oil, dry pan. So here we go. Okay. You can see all this water. It's amazing. So yeah, you just want to kind of spread this out. There's a few chunks in there, but it doesn't matter. Don't be afraid of heat. You really want to heat this. Now, the only reason I'm going to tell you to use a timer is for an experiment on yourself. You should really do this for 10 minutes. So I used a timer. I'm like, oh, let's see, 10 minutes. Bah, ha, ha, ha. Well, the truth is, I would have taken it off naturally at about 4.5 minutes. Your brain tells you it's 10 minutes way before it's 10 minutes. So do this for 10 minutes, okay? So I'm spreading this like this, and I'm going to let it. I actually forgot to season this, so I'm going to season it now. It doesn't matter. A little salt, and peu de poivre. See it bubbling? That's what you want. Don't be afraid. So you want a healthy boil. I'm not kidding, okay? Now test yourself. Go and watch TV and see if you know when 10 minutes is. 10 minutes. It's really 9 minutes now because we've already started. Look at this amount of liquid. You really have to get rid of all this liquid or you're going to have a soggy, messy, drippy pastry situation. The most difficult thing about making a Wellington is rolling it, okay? It's challenging, but that's the most challenging thing you're gonna do today. Saran wrap, what a pain in the butt, right? You have to lay this out, it catches itself, and then it moves when you turn to get the other piece. Okay, news of the world, wet the surface. It's like so freaking obvious, okay? Wet the surface a little bit, and guess what sticks? Saran wrap. Look at that. I mean, how amazing is that? So now it's very easy for me to straighten it out. See that? I just laid awesome science on you guys. Make all your overlaps generous with the prosciutto, with this, with everything. Make the overlap generous. I couldn't believe this tip. Honestly, I've been doing this for years and I'm like, duh. So we're gonna lay out prosciutto. This is the prosciutto. So better to have too much than too little. Get a good piece with a strong edge, okay? Point that edge. This is your outside edge. I know it sounds fussy, but trust me. Leave a wide border. Big overlap, right? 2. So what you're trying to do is seal in the fillet. Big overlap. That's enough. Trust me. Now, I would say that was 10 minutes. Let's see where we're at. Exactly halfway. That's amazing. So while this is going, I'm going to go ahead and sear our filet. What I'm doing is coloring it. You could argue that you don't have to do this, but I think it's appropriate that you give it a little color, even though it's covered by duxelles. All right. So I'm just going to take our beautiful filet here and unwrap it. And remember, it was wrapped so that it would become more tubular. Leonard's wiping his face on his bed. That's pretty tubular. I'm going to just quickly salt and pepper this. This is not brain surgery. Okay, you're just getting it with salt and pepper on it. No oil. Be generous. So you can put salt here and on the plate because you're going to spin it around sort of like this. Pepper the same way. I always put the pepper down on a little tray because I can't stand the peppercorns going everywhere. You want a ripping hot pan. I'm using hot pan.
Grapeseed oil.
Correct. It has a high smoke point, meaning it doesn't burn as quickly as olive oil. So it's good for searing things. Okay, here we go. That's okay. Awesome, just made a huge mess. Get your tongs. I usually do this outside because it's, currently spitting all over my stove. That's the duxelle alarm. Turning the heat down on that and removing the filet. That's all you're doing. You're not cooking it. You're cooking it in the oven. So now you're just gonna let this kind of cool a little bit. Oh, that's nice and dry. That's good. So see how it looks like, but if you press it, it still makes a paste, right? So you're gonna let this cool. You can put it in another container if you're late for work or something and you wanna get it cool. So we'll return and roll our Wellington. So you've made your duxelle, which is your mushroom paste, big whoop. You did that. You laid out your prosciutto, hello. You seared your filet, and you're now going to paint it with a little mustard. Gordon says you should use English mustard because it's a beef Wellington. Who did Wellington fight against? The French, so you're not supposed to use Dijon mustard. Really what you should use is spicy mustard. So I'm breaking all the rules and using American spicy mustard. What I would suggest you do is plop a little down on your J-cloth if you're super nerdy, or in a little dish, plop some down, and you're just gonna paint the filet like this, literally, okay? You should paint this when it's hot, by the way, because it makes it soak in more. Do you know The End of Being There, one of the great masterpieces of American cinema, directed by the incomparable Hal Ashby. And at the end of the movie, if you've seen it, which I'm sure many people have, they included an outtake of Chauncey Gardiner, Peter Sellers, being unable to say a really hilarious thing. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Peter Sellers was adamantly against that being in the movie, and so was Hal Ashby. And the studio wanted it. And what it really does, he's totally right. What it does is it completely destroys the mood at the end of the movie. That last shot, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to say it to the public, because if you haven't seen it, you'll freak out. To go from that to an outtake. Adam, hello, do you agree? So I'm going to get the duxelle from the fridge. And I'm still going to use a paper towel, and you're going to see this. So my hands are clean, obviously, or I wouldn't be cooking. So I'm going to lay it sort of in a rectangle, trying not to tear the prosciutto. Fold this in half, and look how much water is still in here. Hello? You thought it was dry, but it wasn't. It doesn't have to be a perfect rectangle, as I'm illustrating. And then you want to just check to see if it would actually cover it. Maybe we need a little bit more on the ends. Press, 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 press. I'm now going to just dry it again. Okay, this looks good to me. You want to make sure it's even. There's not a big lump, because it's going to make a ring of black around your filet. Ring of Bright Water. My sister used to love that movie. All my friends who are near my age, mid-50s and on, I'm 57. Ring of Bright Water. I don't know if you remember that. It was about it was about a guy who had a beautiful relationship with an otter. Oh, speaking of that, watch this movie, My Octopus Teacher, on Netflix. It's a little ponderous, but it's the footage this guy got is just incredible. If you're into, snorkeling and undersea stuff and octopi, we're ready. Now, I'm, of course, nervous that it's going to disintegrate because we're shooting the show. But you know what happens if it disintegrates and you just get exasperated? Don't make a beef Wellington that day. Make something else. Order Chinese food. Didn't work out. Never panic. Don't panic. Don't panic. Did we ever say what that's from? No. Don't panic. We say that all the time. Don't panic. Don't panic. There's a famous bike racer called George Hincapie, who was trying to win a race called the Paris-Brest-Paris, which is an incredibly hard race over cobblestones. Now the race has very few cobblestones left in it. It's a bike race, a bicycle race. It's extremely treacherous. George Hincapie was Lance Armstrong's teammate. We can go into that another time. Great athlete. And Hincapie was in the front and was going to win the Paris-Brest-Paris. He started to freak out on the speaker to Brunel, who is his coach. So they're speaking to him, and George Brunel goes, "Don't panic, George. Don't panic. Don't panic. You're beautiful. You're going to win. Don't panic." So whenever I feel like I'm going to panic, I always hear, is it George? I always hear George Brunel, it's probably totally not his name, saying, "Don't panic, Randy. You're beautiful. You're going to win." Okay? Brunel is his name. George? No, it's George Hincapie Johann Brunel. That's his name. It's not his name, but it's close. Here we go. Put your filet in the center. It's a little misshapen, but it's okay. Now, the first time I made this, I had an audience of people for dinner. I learned many years ago not to do that. And I proceeded to roll this with the saran wrap underneath. So the saran wrap became a layer. And David said, I think that, and I was like, no, it's how they did it on TV. And David was saying, I think it's good. And of course, he was totally right, because when I went to take out this beautiful loaf out of the fridge, it was destroyed because half of it was wrapped up with this. You know what I mean? Like I tucked this underneath it and put it in the roll. Word to the wise, make a little handle by folding your saran wrap at the bottom. Okay, put your glasses on. And then basically you're gonna lift this up, right? And you're gonna gently fold it over until it touches the other side. Do not tuck the saran wrap. Pull the filet towards you. This is perfect. And then roll it like this. Now I'm unrolling it slightly, and I'm just gonna fold these sides in. It's already taken a pretty good shape. Pull it towards you, pat in the sides like this, and roll it as tight as you can. This is perfect. Take either end and roll it like this, like a sweet. As tight as you can, okay? Squeeze it into the nice shape that you want. This is such a cute size for a Wellington. Kind of flatten the sides a little bit if you want. Set it up on one side if you can. If you can't, it's okay at this point. And let it set in the fridge like this, like its little packet of packetness. Let it rest like this for at least 2 hours. You want it to set, kind of. And things are slightly warm. This you can do before work, and you can wrap it and cook it later the next day. You can do it like this in the morning before work, come back from work, do the pastry, go to bed, get up, go to work, come back and do the dinner party. Or you can, if you have the day off, you can do it all in one day. Hello, it's perfect. Let's do some puff pastry. To fours. You're not scared, do you know why? Because you're a dinner partier. The only rule with puff pastry is you don't want it to get warm because it's layers of butter. So when it gets warm, it can melt really into like a gel is what it feels like. Like it's not pastry anymore. So you want to do all of this stuff fairly swiftly. Now we have a small filet, which is hilarious that we bought 4 pieces of puff pastry. So here's your sheet of puff. Put a little bit of flour, not a lot because you don't want pieces of raw flour, but you already know that. Pinch together any parts that are slightly split. Get your rolling pin, which I forgot to do. Never, ever, ever wash your rolling pin. You're just gonna make this a little bit thinner. Just a tiny bit thinner. Now, this is temperamental slightly. You wanna make sure you can still pick it up. Lay it over your arm, flour, flip it over. You don't wanna roll it without picking it up every now and again. I'm just putting on like down-home science on you. Keep it turning. It's starting to warm up. That's why it's being easier to deal with. I don't like that. It looks weird. So I'm going to push it together. I'm actually going to cut this and I'm going to put it back in the refrigerator. I'm going to go like this. David is freaking out on Long Island because I cut on the marble. Get the pre-cut sheets. Lay that flat. I'm putting it back in the fridge. This is the kind of thing that you make for somebody and you could win them with this. You could win somebody with it. Am I right? It shows you care, but they don't know how easy it is, but it shows a little something. Like you're willing to go the pastry mile for the boy or girl. Moisten up, same thing. Piece of saran wrap. Okay, here we go. Beautiful. Let's take a look. Oh, we closed up pretty good. Hey, man, check that out. Woo! Look at the ends, look great. Look at that. That is a perfect unwrapped Wellington. Geez Louise. So the duxelle that you're seeing hasn't squodged through, I'm hoping. I'm hoping it was stuck from the plastic, but if it's squodged through, it squodged through. I'll take my pastry out. I'm just making sure this is even, Steven. Place your filet in the center. Voila. I'm just going to trim a little teeny weeny bit off. I don't have room to make the little handle, but that's okay. Roll it over until the pastry, oh shoot, I forgot something. Well, there you go. This is what happens in the kitchen. Now that's gonna get warm, but we're gonna try to go as quickly as we can. You wanna just break a couple eggs or, and some shell, apparently, into a bowl. Paint your pastry with egg wash. This is also another little seal, in a way, between the world and your filet. Okay, here we go. Filet goes in the center. Et voilà. Lift it up, fold it over until the pastry meets. Sort of tuck it under nicely and neatly. I would cut a lot of this excess off. Now you're sealed. You have an opportunity. You want it to get slightly warmer now so that you can almost melt the edge into the edge. I'm going to cut a little bit off here. The only reason I'm moving swiftly is because of heat. That's it. And you want to kind of seal this like that. You can use a little egg wash if you choose. I'm going to cut a little bit off this. Paint a little egg wash. You want to kind of squish this a little bit while it's got the egg wash. You know what I mean? Like kind of melt it into itself, okay? Take the risk. You can see the line diminishing. Okay, now I'm going to paint this. Will it come off when I unwrap it? Yeah, but it's okay. This gives it that beautiful shiny appearance. That's it, you're done. I mean, I don't know. Is that perfect or what? Look at this. It's perfection incorporated, is it not? Here we go. Same thing. And then you want this to go in and kind of set up in your fridge, this little baby here. Take your little creature that you made, kind of make sure it's round, right? And then let it rest in the fridge until the pastry, which is now quite jelly-like, is hard again, okay? So here we go, in the fridge. Now, check this out. Here's our other piece of pastry. We're gonna make a lattice top. Here's the thing. This is wildly unnecessary. And you have to have something called a lattice roller. Okay, this is cold again, which is good. You want to kind of roll it out until it's pretty thin. You don't really need more than that. Take your lattice roller, place it at the bottom of your pastry. Be prepared to press hard. You're going to have to do this at the beginning. Don't take it off because you can never find the starting point again. Okay, now, look at this magic. Ah! Look at that! Ah! Now, you notice it's slightly difficult in places. That's because it's warm. Okay, open it up as much as you can. And then you throw this back in the fridge. This will all open perfectly. And now you have a few minutes to just relax. You know what time it is? 30 minutes to Judge Judy. Just wait 30 minutes for the pastry to set up. Okay, now we're just going to put the lattice on top and put the thing in the oven. Put the Wellington on a grate so there's some air circulation. Actually, I'm just gonna wipe this with olive oil. Some may say it's an unnecessary step, but they haven't had a Wellington's bottom drop out. The most important thing about a Wellington, it has to rest for really 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. If you cut it without resting, it will just soak the pastry. It has to go. Remember we talked about all the juices up at the top? So you have to wait for it to go like this and sort of relax again so that you can cut it cleanly. Here's our Wellington. Look how pretty. So pretty. I have some lattices I made last night. We rather like this one, but there's also these. Maybe we'll just use this one. This is the one we just made, I think. Okay, unwrap your Wellington. So if you go to a restaurant, they will have these in their fridge, just lined up to this stage. A little sprinkle of salt there. I'm gonna paint it again so that the lattice sticks. Pick up your lattice. Magic is about to occur. Lay it over the Wellington. Hello. Now you're just gonna tuck the ends in, and then I'm just gonna go like this. Oh, it's so beautiful. Man, is it cute. And the reason it's not cutting is because it's getting warm also. Little tucky poo, tucky poo. Hello. Woo-hoo! Okay, now brush this with egg wash. This gives it a beautiful shiny appearance when it comes out. It goes into a 425 convection, 450 regular oven for about 20 minutes. Trust me. So look at your pastry. If your pastry looks puffed and cooked, the fillet is ready. This is small, but it's really true that the pastry is what you're looking at. Okay, here we go. Now, Wellington is served rare to medium rare. If you like your meat well done, it's unfortunately not a recipe for you. Because if it was well done, the pastry would be black. But you could fry it off a little more when we did the coloring to make it more well done. Unfortunately, it's kind of a rare meat or medium rare dish. Here we go. 20 minutes on the clock, and then I'm going to start looking. Here we go. Wellington, Wellington, it's a crazy kind of Wellington. So I'm very pleased to see only butter in the bottom here. No meat juice, you see that? Ho, that's professional level. It is imperative that this rest. If you cut this now, not good. I wouldn't tent this because it could make the pastry soggy. If you're really nervous about losing heat, you could put a very loose open tent on it, okay? It's still cooking. You can serve this with like a very traditionally made wine reduction that's in any cookbook. I think it's a little much to serve it with gravy. I like to serve it with chili crunch, our favorite condiment. You can serve it with a little horseradish, or you can make a little gravy, a little wine sauce if you'd like. It's quite juicy and succulent, but you'll see it's fuerza bruta. When you cut it, I can't cut it because we're real time. I suggest you use a bread knife, okay? Do not saw it like this. Try to do like that. Don't do this, because you're gonna dislodge all the wrap and people aren't gonna get this beautiful circle, black circle, pink circle pastry, all right? So you wanna do this very cleanly and with confidence. Confident, confident, dry and secure. Raise your hand if you're Beef Wellington, America my home. Thank you guys so much for watching our show. I say it every time, I can't tell you what it means to us to read your responses, your questions, it makes our day. And if you have any requests or questions, never hesitate. And we really try to answer. Sometimes I'm late. Sometimes we go a long time without, or I go a while without looking at them. But please know that we do read them and we do appreciate them deeply. And from me and Sleeping Beauty, what do you want?
Wellington.
But you can't have any Wellington.
I can have it.
No, you can't.
Doc said I can have it.
What doc?
The beef doc.
There's no beef doc. Hurrah, hurrah. Beef Wellington. It's Hellington good. People try to put us down. Dun, 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 dun. Talking about my beef Wellington.